Hey everybody, welcome to Taiwan Talk, where we speak on topics related to life in Taiwan. I'm today's host, Trevor Tortomasi, and I'll be honest with you, it's been a really tough month, epidemic-wise. But with all this time locked down at home, I've been thinking a lot about ways I can change up the narrative structure of this show. So I hope today isn't too different from what you're used to. Now, today's show is very unique in that it's essentially a podcast about podcasts. No, wait, please don't run away. Seriously, though, this episode I was very lucky to speak with Nicole Huang. Nicole is the Chief Operating Officer of the company SoundOn. SoundOn is Taiwan's largest podcast hosting platform. That means every time you download a podcast made here in Taiwan, it's very likely that the data is coming from their servers over at SoundOn. Now, we do start by talking a little bit about numbers, because the growth of podcasts in Taiwan right now is seriously insane. But we quickly move on to talking about Taiwan's most popular genres. Spoilers, I don't think it's true crime. Anyway, without further ado, here we go. Podcasts have been growing, exploding in the US for over a decade now.
Yeah.
And in Taiwan, it's starting, but what took Taiwan so long?
Actually, I think we like to listen to the music. So a lot of people like to listen live, maybe listen music through KKBox or Spotify. So they think maybe podcast is a new ideas. And then every platform in Taiwan, even KKBox, they start to have the podcast category there. Yeah, so maybe a lot of elements try to boost the trends in Taiwan. So we call 2020 is the first year to a lot of people like to listen to the podcast.
Right, especially with so many people sort of being more careful around the pandemic and maybe staying at home. What a great time to start when you need something to listen to, yeah.
So when you say why Taiwan is so late, maybe we don't have a lot of people driving. Yeah, we always take public transportation, just like MRT. Yeah, so we like listen to the music and watch the video, and we never think about, why I don't listen to a podcast. So maybe that's a chance someone try to enter this market, because we think how to define podcast. What is podcast? What's the definition of podcast? Everyone have a lot of questions.
Now, despite SoundOn's success as a hosting service, it didn't start with only hosting in mind. Nicole says SoundOn has also produced some of its own original shows.
In the beginning, we don't want to only provide a hosting service. We start to think, why not we cannot create some beautiful original shows? We create 20 originals in 2019, and we still keep update all these episodes is around 11. And now we try to create more.
That's great. Yeah. I would love to keep creating more and more podcasts, but there's already so many out there. At the moment, how many podcasts is SoundOn hosting?
Oh,
are you allowed to tell me this information?
Yeah,
okay,
of
awesome.
course I can tell you this information. And it's very interesting. When I see the next April, how many shows we have? We only have almost 150 shows on that time. And now we almost have around 10,000. Yeah, 10,000 shows in SoundOn hostings.
Wow.
Yeah.
Last April.
Yeah. Last April.
150 to 10,000.
Yeah.
That is incredible. Can I ask, what was the first podcast your platform hosted?
Yeah.
Was it an original?
Yeah, it's the original we have. It's called TK. TK this show is TK 创投. It's kind of talking about a lot of something about innovations. And if you want to be an entrepreneur in Taiwan or startups, so he invites a lot of owners of startups to talking about how to build up a business and what kind of business or market opportunities you can see. So
that makes sense, yeah, because SoundOn was a startup at that point.
Yeah, of course.
And now it's is it still a startup technically?
Yeah.
I should know this. How many people are listening to podcasts in Taiwan right now?
Actually, in Taiwan, we almost have 3 million listen to the podcast now.
So do Taiwanese listeners seem to have a favorite genre?
The three biggest genre in SoundOn. The first one is talking about society or interaction. And the second one is entertainment. Entertainment include chatting or relaxing or something gossip, maybe like from news.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing the news, but I don't know any gossip.
I mean, the gossip is sometimes from the artist. It's just like digging out something you don't know. Yeah.
Oh, that was
so
my next question. What gossip do you know? Oh, I guess we answered that question then. Oh, and then you were about to say a third genre?
Oh, yeah. The third genre is about psychology or your life careers. Try to give you something positive, or maybe try to have your emotional to be kind of stable. A lot of people need some way to release their pressures, I guess.
Yeah, I absolutely feel that.
Yeah.
That's what I listen to as well.
But mention about the listeners' patterns, we found listeners like to trying everything. Every new shows is like kind of drama or just like the true crime.
Oh, that's my next question. Oh, you read my mind.
Oh, it's we have a sound, one of our SoundOn original is called 阿善师见识实录. This man participate in a lot of investigation, so he can share a lot of details. And a lot of people like to listen to this.
Look, humans love gossip. They really love, that's the genre. One of the most popular podcast genres, as I was about to mention, in the U.S. right now is true crime. I was going to ask, though, specifically because Taiwan doesn't seem to have as much crime as the U.S., which is very nice. But then what would true crime be about?
Yeah, actually, it depends on the different level about the crimes. Maybe in the U.S., you think, somebody killed others. But in Taiwan, maybe you just have some 没有办法破解的案子.
Unsolvable mysteries.
Unsolvable or mysteries, events that police cannot tell you anything and still cannot solve it. So our TV or our podcast like to create such kind of shows to share you difference.
Yeah, because in the U.S. there has also been an increase in the number of people making audio dramas. Do you see a growth in those in Taiwan as well?
Not much yet, because it needs to spend a lot of time to create a story first. Yeah. So as I mentioned before, we want to create some originals. Such kind of originals, they have two meanings. One is for our listeners, maybe they like such kind of new shows. It's kind of the Netflix, they do this strategy. But the other one thing is we try to build new categories, maybe about talking about stories, or I mentioned stage shows. So it means diversity shows will generate.
That's awesome. I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Do you have books on tape as well? Audiobooks?
We try to have audiobook. It's just like the storytelling for kids. A lot of people...
Starting with short books.
Yeah, short books, yeah. But now we didn't do that because maybe one thing, they have copyrights there. And maybe in the future, when I said we have high quality podcasts, maybe we can do the audiobooks.
What other patterns? Have you noticed any other patterns in listenership?
Actually, I can share one thing from the hosting side. Maybe you are curious. According to your numbers, when you release or publish your episodes, then your numbers will go up. But within 1 month, we actually can predict is this show successful or not, because it's the first week always maybe have 60% of all the quantity. So if you compare the first 1 week and the first 1 month of this episode, the first 1 week decide everything. Yeah.
And this is per episode too. So people keep getting new chances as they publish new episodes, but then you can see. What can you tell us about SoundOn's plans for the future?
For SoundOn, we have hosting, we have listening platforms, and we also have advertisement sales teams. So we try to combine all the ecosystem together. If people, they create their contents, they want to do it consistently, they need to have some incentives. Maybe they can earn a lot of money, or maybe they can have something to push them, try to do this every day and every week. We want to try to create something that is more useful, because we know a lot of shows growing rapidly in the recent years. But that means it's hard to figure out what kind of contents you like.
Yeah, and there is so much too. When you count how many people are listening to something, do you count by downloads? Do you count by subscribers? Do you count by just the amount of people listening at any one moment? How do you sort of count these numbers?
We call daily active user. It's kind of how many people download your apps and then register it. And also, if we want to track this episode is good or bad, we track how many people, unique people, they listen to this episode. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's different way to tracking.
And can you see how much of an episode they listen to?
Yes, actually in our apps, users may spend almost half or an hour listening to the podcast. The situation you want to listen to the podcast is when you take the MRT, so you only have 15 minutes to listen to these shows.
Okay, yeah. So what I'm hearing is I should edit this episode to be 15 minutes.
Yeah, so we suggest. Yeah.
I have bad news. We've already been talking for 19 minutes. I'm pulling the curtain back here. But we'll work on the edit. We'll do it in post.
But it's different. If you just want to relax, so 15 minutes, or you want to learn English. But if you just sharing, just like us, we just talking about some trend in some market trend in Taiwan or something very interesting,
right.
Then such kind of shows maybe about 40 to 60 minutes. Yeah. So
right.
Yeah. So 40 or 60 is still okay.
Well,
Don't worry.
I'm more curious about what is the future of podcasts in Taiwan in English.
Oh.
It's complicated, I'm sure, because probably a lot of it is for learning English. You can be honest. I know. I know how many listeners I have. It's not that many. But I'm curious about, in general, if there are some simple English shows for chat programs in English.
I think a lot of shows talking about this, but some of them, if they want to be famous or they want to have a lot of listeners.
Hitting the charts.
Yeah. It's a little hard.
What do you think is the future for Taiwan's podcast in the international world?
For international world, I think it depends on the show. Because when we talk about philosophy, then it can use everywhere. But when we talk about the news, it only happen in Taiwan. Or when you talk about the gossip, the people you know is only based on Taiwan. So it's hard to spread such kind of contents to other places.
Wait, so if it's spreading to China, people have to be listening to tons of podcasts in China. What are the trends like there? Have you been able to analyze that, or?
Oh, a lot of people or platform they call 喜马拉雅 or 得到, but they based on the knowledge sharing. If you want to learn some knowledge, you can through these platforms I called 喜马拉雅 or 得到. These two apps is famous there.
Okay, but both of these are very much Chinese apps. And if we upload something to SoundOn, will it ever be on one of those platforms, or?
Actually, they also can get such kind of contents because in the podcast is RSS feed technology. So if everyone can get the RSS feed, they can have such kind of podcast shows into their platforms.
When you look at which podcasts are becoming popular, sometimes you can look back at the history of radio. Do you look back at the history of radio and do you see the same patterns?
I think when we're talking about radios in Taiwan people, we always just like some DJs sharing some music. So maybe they are not talking about just one topics and have regularly update the episode insights. You cannot listen to such kind of radio everywhere. So if we compare watching TV and listen to the podcast, it's just like watching TV, you need to spend some time and just lying down on the sofa and turn on your TV. That means you prepare to spend 1 or 2 hours there.
Right.
But podcast is totally different. It's just like, okay, when I go somewhere and I don't have enough time to listen something, and what can I do in this spare time? So podcasts just fit in those gap. So I think the situation they use this is a little different.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
I also have a question of you. You do the podcast and you do the radio. What's the difference for you to decide a show?
It's weird because for when I'm doing the radio, it's all written out beforehand. Because it's so important on radio to not make any mistakes.
I'm
right. And I'm obviously not a DJ. The DJs have a special talent, and that talent is they can talk forever.
Okay.
and still be interesting. That's why we hire them to be DJs. For me, doing the news, we write the news, we edit the news, and then I read the news. So there's not much risk involved there, unless I'm saying the name of the president of a country and I don't know how to pronounce it, which happens sometimes. But for podcasts, ironically, I can edit all I want.
If you organize well everything, that means there's no surprise in your podcast. So what kind of surprise is the most important things to make your show successful? Just like we are talking, you ask me questions and I ask you questions and something great idea bump. The listeners just like participate in our communication.
Yeah.
So it's not radio. If you lose some part in radio, you won't feel, what a pity.
Right.
But in podcast, it kind of,
that's why you have the 15-second back button for the recording. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I kind of wish I had that in real life. Now that I'm thinking about it, I really wish I had a go back 15 seconds button. All right. What advice would you give to someone who wants to start their own show?
The first one thing is you need to have your style, your concept. What things or what topic you want to talk. It's just a small things, but how the way you talk about these ideas is your personality or your style. And the second thing is you need to just like create the structures. If you want to talk about kids or you want to talk about the dating apps or you want to talk about the technical things, you need to focus on one thing. Try to organize every episode. Then that can make you concentrate on the same style. And how you market your episode is also the other one things. Maybe you should have more clear topics, or maybe you should invite someone who is very famous. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I've tried that already. No one will respond to my emails. But hey, you do what you can. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the people in Taiwan?
Oh, wait a moment. Let me check my notes.
Oh, okay. Now you're going to do the news.
Maybe I'll say, if you have great ideas or you can imagine anything different to create from the listeners, try to use SoundOn hosting. If we are just a bridge, you want a lot of people provide their contents, then you should have a healthy ecosystem inside. So we try to figure out some opportunities, try to help listeners, podcasters, and the advertisement to combine together. Then everyone can win-win in this ecosystem.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for coming in today.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was Nicole Huang, the COO of Taiwan's largest podcast hosting platform. I am so grateful for her patience through my flurry of questions. And thank you for listening to today's podcast about podcasts. If we haven't inspired you to start your own, then I hope you at least learned something. But seriously, you should start one too. Why not? Anyway, if you'd like to hear more from ICRT, check out our podcast Taiwan This Week, a weekly roundup of the news here in Taiwan, hosted by people much smarter than me. And join my co-host Ryan Drillsma in next week's episode, and if we survive the epidemic, then I'll have another episode up in 2 weeks. Stay safe out there, everybody. And until next time, I'm Trevor Tortomasi on ICRT FM 100.